John, it was just a picture, a faded old baby photo on our fridge. But when my husband grabbed the wrong one, and he didn't just knock down a magnet, he shattered our entire life. We were late for Sunday brunch. Like always, Connor was pacing, coffee half full, tie undone. I was in the kitchen with Ava, our 7-year-old, brushing crumbs off her little yellow dress. She'd spilled her cereal all over the floor again. I was half laughing, half losing my mind. Connor came over to grab the keys off the fridge, right where we always stuck them under a magnet, the one that held up a photo of baby Ava, her first birthday, frosting on her nose, gap-toothed smile. But he didn't grab that picture. He grabbed the one underneath it, one I hadn't seen in years, one I meant to throw away but never could. He peeled it from under the other, held it up, squinting. "Wait, who is this?" And just like that, my stomach dropped through the floor. The photo he held was grainy and creased. A different baby, smaller, wrapped in a blue and white hospital blanket. Same pose, same crooked smile, but not Ava. He looked at me, confused, expecting a quick answer. But my silence lasted a second too long. "Maya? Whose baby is this?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Ava tugged on my sleeve, asking if she could bring her coloring book in the car. Connor handed me the photo, barely reacting, and walked off, muttering something about traffic. But I stood there frozen, because the baby in that photo was mine, but not Ava. I was 19 when I got pregnant the first time. Back then, I was just Maya from Jersey, studying psychology, barely surviving on coffee and cheap ramen. The father wasn't Connor. He was a guy named Sean, someone I dated too young, loved too fast, and trusted too easily. When I found out I was pregnant, he was gone, vanished without a goodbye. My parents freaked, threatened to cut me off, said I was ruining my life. I moved into a women's shelter for a few months, and when the time came, I gave birth to a little boy. For 3 days I held him, fed him, named him Elijah. Then I signed the papers, a closed adoption, no contact, no updates, no second chances. Afterward, I tried to move on. I transferred schools, changed cities, even changed my major. I never told anyone about Elijah, not even Connor, not even myself, really. But I kept one thing, that photo. They gave it to me at the hospital, a memento, a reminder. I hid it behind other pictures, stuck in old journals, buried in drawers. But somehow, it ended up on the fridge, and now Connor had seen it. In the car, I stared out the window while Ava hummed quietly in the back seat. My fingers kept brushing against the picture in my coat pocket. Connor didn't say a word. He wasn't angry, not yet, but I knew him. The silence meant he was thinking, connecting dots, searching memories, and I knew the moment we got back home he'd ask again. And this time I couldn't lie. That night, after Ava fell asleep, I found him on the porch, sitting in the dark. No drink, no music, just the hum of the streetlights and the cicadas buzzing in the heat. I sat beside him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You looked scared this morning." I nodded. He held up the photo again. "This baby, is he yours?" And finally I told him. Not everything, but enough. I told him about Sean, about the pregnancy, about Elijah, about the adoption, the name, the hospital. I was alone, Connor. I was 19. I didn't have anyone. He didn't yell. He didn't ask why I never told him. He just said, "Where is he now?" For the next few weeks, we barely talked about it, but something shifted. Connor started coming home later, spent more time in his office, was always on his laptop. I thought maybe he was avoiding me. Until one night I walked past the study and saw his screen. It was a forum, one for adoptees searching for birth parents. He had posted, "Looking for male child born in 2005, New Jersey. Mother's name Maya, surname withheld." My chest tightened. I hadn't asked him to do this. I hadn't even decided if I wanted to find Elijah, but now Connor had made that choice for both of us. It was a Friday afternoon when it happened. I was picking up Ava from school when my phone buzzed with a message from Connor. "Come home, now." No context, just those 3 words. When I got home, he was standing in the doorway, holding his phone like it was radioactive. Someone responded. I took the phone and read it. "I think you're looking for me. I was born in 2005. My birth certificate says Baby Boy S, no other info. My adopted parents told me my birth mom's name was Maya." My knees buckled. The message was signed, Eli. I stared at the message on Connor's phone like it was a ghost made digital. I must have read it 50 times before I whispered, "It's him." Connor didn't speak. His hand was on my back, gentle. He knew I needed to take the lead, so I wrote back, "Hi Eli, I'm Maya. I think I'm your birth mom. Thank you for writing me." My hands were shaking as I hit send. I didn't expect him to reply right away, but within minutes the 3 dots popped up. And then the words, "I've been looking for you for years." We exchanged a flurry of messages. Eli was 19 now. He'd always known he was adopted. His parents, Chris and Lillian, had told him young. But they never shared details, only that his mother had been young, scared, and wanted him to have a better life. "Did you name me?" he asked. I told him yes. "What was it?" "Elijah." There was a pause. Then he replied, "I always felt like that was my name. Is that weird?" And I started crying, because for the first time in 19 years, I wasn't grieving in silence. That night, as I tucked Ava into bed, she asked me something out of nowhere. "Mommy, do I have any brothers or sisters?" I froze. She pointed at the fridge. The photo was gone now. I'd taken it down, but she remembered. "The baby Daddy found. That wasn't me, right?" I sat on her bed and smoothed her hair. "That was a long time ago, sweetheart, before you were born. Is he real?" I didn't know how to answer, so I just hugged her and said, "I'll tell you everything. One day." After a few weeks of messaging, Eli asked if we could meet. He lived 2 hours away, was in college, studying architecture. I said yes. We met at a quiet cafe off the interstate. I got there first. I kept staring at the door, at every tall, lanky guy with curly brown hair. And then I saw him. He walked in with his hands in his pockets, nervous smile, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me, and I just knew. He looked like me. He looked like him too, Sean. When he sat down, we didn't say anything at first. We just looked at each other, and then he said, "You're real." We talked for hours about everything. He told me he was raised well, that Chris and Lillian were kind, supportive, and never made him feel less than. But he also said there was always a piece missing. It's like everyone had a puzzle piece but me. I told him everything I could, about the shelter, about how scared I was, about how I still think about him every year on his birthday. At one point, he reached across the table and held my hand. "You don't have to explain. You gave me love even if you couldn't give me a home." and I broke down in that booth like I hadn't in years. Back home, Connor was different. He'd been supportive, but something had shifted. He stayed up late, barely spoke. One night I caught him staring at Ava's baby book, his jaw tight. "Are you okay?" I asked. He nodded, too fast. "You just kept something that big from me for so long." I understood, but what he said next chilled me. "What if there's more you're not telling me?" That's when I realized Connor didn't just feel left out, he felt betrayed. A few days later, Eli texted again. "I want to meet your family." I told him about Ava, about Connor, about how complicated it all was. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he wrote, and I believed him. But I also knew this wasn't going to stay private forever. Secrets don't just stay buried, not when they start walking and talking and asking to come over for dinner. We invited Eli over for Sunday dinner. Connor cooked. Ava set the table. I tried to act normal. When Eli arrived, Ava peeked from behind my leg, curious. "Is that him?" she whispered. I nodded. She walked up, looked at him hard, and said, "You look like Mommy." Eli smiled. "That's because I'm her son too." Connor didn't look up from the mashed potatoes, but his knuckles were white. Over dinner, Eli was polite, kind, careful with his words, but Connor barely spoke. Later, while washing dishes, he finally said, "Did you ever think maybe some doors should stay closed?" That night, I found a note in Connor's jacket pocket. It wasn't addressed to me, it was from a private investigator. Subject, Sean Carter. Last seen in Tampa, Florida. Confirmed paternity pending. My breath caught. He was looking into Sean. I hadn't spoken to him in over 2 decades. I didn't even know where he'd ended up. Why would Connor do this? What was he trying to prove? Or was he trying to find something? I remember sitting alone in the kitchen after Ellie had gone to bed. That photo still clutched in my hand. The one Jonathan had pulled off the fridge. It wasn't just a picture anymore, it was a crack in the glass I had so carefully put between myself and the truth. Jonathan didn't bring it up again. He acted like it never happened, but I knew him, knew when he was holding back. And it scared me more than anything. He stirred his soup slowly, barely eating. Then finally he looked at me across the table and asked, "Megan, who's Grace?" The spoon froze midair in my hand. I hadn't heard that name in 25 years. Hearing it now felt like being dunked in ice water. I tried to play dumb, shrugged. "Grace?" I knew a Grace in high school. Why? He didn't press. He just nodded slowly. But I knew. He knew I was lying. I met Grace in my first year of college. She was electric, the kind of girl who could walk into a silent room and make everyone lean in. I was quiet, shy, practical. We were roommates, best friends. And then, everything changed. She got pregnant. I held her hair while she threw up every morning. Went with her to the doctor, hid it from her parents. She swore she'd keep the baby. She loved that baby, but when the time came, she couldn't do it. Grace gave birth to a baby girl, beautiful, perfect. She named her Eliana. But the moment they put that tiny girl in her arms, Grace began sobbing like someone had died, and maybe in a way someone had. She said she couldn't be a mother, that she wasn't ready, that she was broken. She left that hospital and never came back, and I couldn't let that baby go. I told myself I was saving her. I called a lawyer. I filed for adoption. Grace signed the papers from a rehab clinic 3 states away. I raised Eliana as my own. Jonathan never knew. I met him 2 years later. I told him I had a daughter from a previous relationship. He never questioned it. He loved Ellie from day one. She was mine. She was always mine. That night, I couldn't take the weight anymore. I walked into our bedroom, sat down next to him, and whispered, "I have to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago." I told him everything. Grace, the hospital, the adoption. He didn't say a word for a long time, and then with eyes full of something I couldn't quite name, not hate but not love either, he asked, "Does Ellie know?" I shook my head. "She doesn't need to," I said. "She's happy, that's what matters." But even as I said it, I felt it crumbling. The next few weeks were unbearable. Jonathan barely looked at me. Ellie had become more distant, more distracted. Her grades dropped. She seemed lost. I thought it was teenage mood swings, hormones. But one afternoon I came home early from work and heard something that shattered me. She was on the phone, her voice low, urgent. "No, I haven't told her yet. I'm not sure how she'd react, but yes, I want to meet you." I froze outside her door, and then I heard the name, Grace. I ran into the bathroom and locked the door. My hands shook so violently I could barely breathe. How had she found her? Why now? Had Jonathan told her? Or had Grace somehow reached out? I remembered that old photo, the one Jonathan had found, the one with Grace's hospital bracelet in the background. I had never meant for Ellie to see it, but maybe she had. Maybe everything was already slipping out of my hands. That night I confronted him. "Did you tell her about Grace?" He didn't lie, just stared at me coldly. "She deserved to know. She's not a child anymore." I slapped the counter so hard the plates rattled. "You had no right." He stood. "And you did?" The silence that followed was so heavy, so final, I thought it might crush us both. A few days later, Ellie said she was going to study at the library, but I didn't believe her. I followed her. I parked across the street from the small cafe on Oak Ridge and waited. Then I saw her walk in and saw who was waiting for her. Grace, older now. Her hair was streaked with gray, her eyes tired. But I would have known her anywhere. She stood and wrapped Ellie in a hug. I wanted to scream, to run in and pull her away, but I didn't. I just watched. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of Ellie's life. Every bedtime story, every scraped knee I kissed, every fever I stayed up nursing, and suddenly, it felt like none of it belonged to me. When she got back, she didn't say anything. She went straight to her room, but as she passed me in the hallway, she stopped, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You lied to me my whole life." I opened my mouth to speak, but she was already gone. I thought I had protected her, but maybe I had only stolen her from the truth. And now I was about to lose everything. Because Grace? She wasn't just visiting, she wanted her D. The house felt colder after Ellie's words. "You lied to me my whole life." They echoed through every corner, every picture frame, every memory. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I barely spoke to Jonathan and Ellie. She barely came home. But I didn't chase her, because a part of me believed I didn't have the right to. I remembered holding her tiny hand when she took her first steps, her laugh echoing through the park as she chased fireflies, the way she clung to me during her first day of school, the time she screamed, "I hate you," and slammed her bedroom door, then cried in my arms 2 hours later. She wasn't mine by blood, but she was mine in every way that mattered, wasn't she? Jonathan walked into the kitchen one morning. He looked worn down. His usual sharpness had dulled into something tired and distant. "Grace is petitioning for visitation," he said, sliding a folded paper toward me. "Eventually, it might turn into more." I stared at the paper. Legal words blurred together, but one thing was clear: I was no longer the only mother in Ellie's life. I went upstairs, locked the bathroom door, and slid down the wall. I sobbed. Not the graceful kind, the raw, breathless, red-eyed kind. And for the first time, I asked myself something I never dared to before. Was I wrong? Had I stolen a life that wasn't mine to take? Had I created a world built on love or on lies? And if I let her go now, was that love? Or was it just giving up? I decided to write Ellie a letter, because I didn't trust myself to speak without falling apart. I wrote, "Ellie, I never meant to lie, but I did. I told myself I was saving you. That love would be enough. But maybe I was saving myself. You deserve to know who you are, and I didn't give you that. For that, I will carry guilt for the rest of my life, but please don't ever doubt this. I chose you, every single day, through every scraped knee, every bedtime, every heartbreak. You were my daughter long before any court said so. And you always will be, even if you walk away." I placed the letter on her bed and waited. She came home late that night. Her face was puffy, eyes red. I watched from the hallway as she sat on her bed, picked up the envelope, and opened it. I didn't go in. I just listened. Silence, then a sob, a small one, then louder, then the sound of footsteps. She ran into the hallway, right into my arms. She cried into my shoulder. I cried into her hair. "I hated you," she whispered. "I hated you so much." "I know," I said, "and I deserved it. But I missed you more." We talked all night. She told me how Grace reached out through a DNA test platform, how she'd seen the photo and felt a strange pull, how she didn't know why, but when she saw Grace's message, she had to know. She told me how confused she felt, how angry and how scared, because she didn't want to lose me either. A week later, Ellie asked me to come with her to meet Grace again. I hesitated, but she reached for my hand. "I want both of my moms to be there." That sentence broke something inside me, and healed something too. Grace looked older than I remembered, worn like a candle that had burned too long. She stood when she saw me. "Megan." I nodded. We didn't hug, didn't need to. We sat, talked, stumbled our way through years of unsaid words. She told Ellie her side, the fear, the shame, the addiction, the running. She told me she never expected me to raise Ellie, but she was grateful I did. There was no big emotional reconciliation, no dramatic scene, just a quiet, fragile agreement to do better, to move forward, together. It's been 8 months now. Ellie sees Grace once a month. They talk, share photos, slowly rebuild something new. But every night, she still kisses me goodnight, still calls me mom, and every time she does, I breathe a little easier. Because I didn't lose her, I almost did, but love, real love, finds its way back. Sometimes the biggest secrets aren't about what we hide, but what we're too afraid to lose. And sometimes, even the wrong photo on a fridge can reveal the truth we've run from all our lives.